Step into a world of magic and limitless possibilities with me, your host, Katie Soul. I'm not just your average podcaster. I'm a former Fortune 100 exec who dared to escape the rat race and embark on my own mystical journey. Together, we'll discover that a mystical life is not something you stumble upon. It's a life you consciously create. Join me as we explore inspiring stories of extraordinary souls who fearlessly pursued their dreams and unlocked their inner radiance. Welcome to my world, where magic awaits and your light shines bright. Welcome to the Mystical Living Podcast. I am so excited to be joined by Joanna Walden today, beaming in from Brooklyn, New York. Welcome, Joanna.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is exciting.
I'm so excited. This is going to be an epic episode. I can already feel it in my every cell.
Me too.
So before we get going, tell us a little bit about who are you really?
Who am I? Wow. In my previous life, I was in corporate advertising in New York, actually here. I'm back in my second hometown. But I'm originally from New Zealand, as many of you will tell. There's a hint of an accent there. And I transitioned out of my corporate career officially sort of around 2019, 2020, and followed the path of my inner calling. But before that, I had spent so many years on that journey. I just sort of put it all together and packaged it up at that point. I've always had an incredibly spiritual life and was that way inclined since I was a kid, with my mum, who was very spiritual, and my dad, who very much was not. But I became an author, and I talked about my journey, and then I started really working in the energetic space. And so I'm a multidimensional channel. I channel through energy activations using sound and light and sacred geometry to help people kind of shift and change and work with their light body. And I also use sound. I've got a beautiful 40-inch Atlantis gong at home, where I take people, I work with people on gong journeys. Which I am very much missing being away. And so, I've just moved into this space of the more energetic work and really living the life of spirit and of the heart, actually. So, it's all come together as one.
So beautiful, and the perfect segue, because we start every episode allowing both of us and the audience, everyone that's listening, just to take that journey from the elevator ride down into the heart, quieting that mind where the human self resides, and opening the access point to the heart where our intuition, our inner knowing resides. And so it's a perfect segue as you brought up the heart. And I'm so excited that you are going to be leading us in this experience today.
Yeah, let's do it. All right.
Woo.
So I invite you to close down your eyes right now for a moment and take a beautiful, big, deep breath in through the nose. And let's breathe out with a little sigh, just letting anything go from your day. And taking another deep breath in. And this time, just breathing out slowly, twice or three times as slow as you usually would. And on your next breath, bringing one hand to the center of your chest, connecting into your divine heart technology, and breathing into the space, this beautiful spark of light that you are. Breathing out again gently and slowly, twice or three times as slow. And as you breathe into this heart space and the spark of light, breathing in peace, allowing peace to flood through your entire system, and then breathing out anything that is not peace. And then breathing in compassion, allowing compassion to flood through your entire vessel. And then breathing out, gently letting go. And then breathing in cosmic divine love, allowing the frequency of cosmic divine love to completely fill you, connected through your heart. And from here, we're just going to take another beautiful breath. And this time I want you to send this light from your heart all the way down your vessel, all the way down through your lower chakras, all the way down through your feet, sending it deep, deep, deep down into the earth. And then moving through to the crystalline core, the heart of Gaia. And then feel your heart beating together with the heart of Gaia, with that beautiful pulsating crystalline core of the earth, connecting with these two hearts combined. And then bringing some of that beautiful energy all the way up from the center of the earth, all the way up through the layers of mud and silt and clay and crystal, all the way up higher and higher, and back up into your feet, up into your legs, into your root, sacral, up into your solar plexus, and then back into your heart. And then we're actually going to move through to connect to the heart of the cosmos now. So moving this energy from your heart up to your high heart, into your throat now, through the back of your head at the causal chakra, up through your third eye and your crown, sending it through the upper chakras above your body, all the way up through to connect through our sun, connecting through the sun as a hyperdimensional doorway of alignment, moving through to the second sun beyond that, through to the central sun, Alcyone in the Pleiades star system, and then through to the great central sun, moving us into the heart of the cosmos. And I want you to stop for a moment here and feel into that beautiful rhythm, frequency, and energy, and feel how different it was from the heart of the earth. Knowing that with all of our hearts combined, we feel beautiful alignment, beautiful peace, connection. And so now inviting some of this beautiful energy from the heart of the cosmos to flow through with you, back through the great central sun, the second sun, all the way back down through our sun, and down, spiraling into your upper chakras, into your crown and third eye, causal, throat, high heart, and heart. From here, feeling the energy flowing from above to below, from below to above, as you open yourself as a beautiful portal of light. And we invite our multidimensional mastery forth, commanding that forth to guide our way today. So we can hear what we need to hear, feel what we need to feel, and know what we need to know in this beautiful, transformative conversation. Taking a final breath in, breathing out slowly, and when you're ready, gently opening your eyes.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Mm. That was very special. Thank you for treating us to that multidimensional earthly and star family connection. Oh my gosh, just beautiful. So amazing. All right. So as we dive in today, I would love to start with this moment that we shared in Sedona. We were at the same crystalline convergence. And if anyone listened to Sandra Walter or John Burgos episode, you'll know what we're talking about. And for those who haven't, it was a really beautiful coming together of soul family and a very activating experience. And at the end of a couple of days together, we went out onto the Red Rocks. And that was the first time that we met. We're walking up the trail of the red rocks, and we just sort of found ourselves together and had this beautiful opening. And I'm so grateful for that moment and that context to share with the audience. So tell us a little bit about how was the convergence for you? What was that like coming together in a unified field with so many amazing beings?
I mean, I had such a wonderful time there. I felt like it was really a reunion of soul family, and the frequency was so high, I was just sort of, like, lapping it up, you know? It was just you just wanted to drink it and, continue to, align with that, and it was also so nice just to be able to sit and receive rather than stepping in to lead, which I'm obviously doing at my events and things like that, and so it was really, really nice just to sink into it all and have the different messages come through and be meeting other beautiful beings like yourself who were really all there for the same purpose of this heart expanded experience and really using our collective energy to shift frequency and create this beautiful dynamic and anchoring these energies. And so by that point, I mean, I was vibrating really, like off the charts at that point because we'd spent that beautiful time in sort of that prayerful sound chanting and things. And I was really vibrating quite high after that. Like I literally felt high. And so
Same.
it was getting to those rocks at that beautiful sunset time, and that afterglow was, like, really permeating everything, and it was just nice to sit and bathe in it at that point. Yeah, I had such a wonderful time. I really, really enjoyed that part of, my journey and my trip in America so far. It's been divine.
So you're on a little journey in America. So tell us
Mhm.
about where you've been and where you're going.
Yeah, so I started off at Burning Man, funnily enough, which was hilarious because
Amazing.
obviously
Was it
the
your
year
first Burning Man?
it was.
Oh, wow. That was the one for the books.
Yeah, the year of mud,
The
but
Year
it
of
was also
Mud.
very inspiring and very liberating, that level
Mm.
of freedom and creativity, and it was really fun until obviously we couldn't go anywhere, but, I feel like I'm gonna have to go back and finish that experience, and yeah, so I actually started there um, and then went through to LA, and then, I was presenting at a wellness festival in South Utah, which was divine. And then I got to visit Zion National Park, and Sandra Walter actually gave me a tip of where the portals were there, and so I went and did some activations, and a part of my work is very much working at sacred sites, and when I run retreats, I take people into that, and often finding portals and opening things myself uh, and doing it that way, which is nice. I feel like it taps into the new consciousness energies when you are playing around in that space. Um, yeah, and so, I'm aware that when I'm going to these places, I'm giving any coding I've picked up so far over the course of this incarnation or, even any other in the multidimensional space, and working with that and not necessarily needing to know how that translates or what that means in the moment, but just with the intention going to these sites. And then, interestingly, I was led to go to Mesa Verde in Colorado, which is an ancient Pueblo site, and I was not planning to be in Colorado at all this trip. And funnily enough, you have to sort of, buy a ticket for a tour to actually get into the space. And I guess Spirit really wanted me to go because I didn't book a tour. I just sort of showed up, and then I was at the site realizing that I couldn't really get anywhere close to where I needed. But when I first arrived, I overheard a conversation between a woman and the ranger. And the woman was saying, "Oh, I don't have a ticket." And the ranger was saying, "Oh, well, I know someone who's got a couple of spare tickets." And when I was actually on the platform right down below, this was in the car park, but when I was on the platform, I really realized, like, oh, wow, I'm not going to get much of anything here. And then they happened to be right next to me again. And she's like, oh, there he is. Let me get you a ticket. And her partner was with her, who then said, I can't go. The fear of heights is really being amplified for me right now, and I don't feel in a well state enough to go. And so I knew there was another spare ticket. So I went and asked the gentleman and said, I hear you may have a spare ticket. I'm happy to pay you cash, whatever. Like, could I please take it? Because I didn't book a ticket. And he said, absolutely not. Just have it and go, please.
Oh.
And when I got down to the site, it was like, the energy was so strong. And you can't sit down or anything because it's a beautiful ancient site. You're not allowed to touch anything. You're not allowed to sit. So I was just standing there going, whoa. and experiencing the energetics. And so I was clearly meant to go there. And then I ended up visiting a lot of these ancient Pueblo sites in the next part of the trip, where I was, I came to Sedona after that. But then when I went to New Mexico, I was visiting a lot of those kinds of sites. And so I've been working at that level of the energetics and coding that's at those sites, interestingly, which was never sort of what I had anticipated doing. But I'm sure that's all going to come together when I get home back to New Zealand. I'm not kind of aware of exactly what that was all about yet. I mean, it sort of comes in drip feed to me often. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But and now I'm here in New York, and I'm doing the New Life Expo at the end of this week, and then attending a couple of other conferences in Las Vegas before I fly back to New Zealand.
Amazing.
So it's
It's a tour.
yeah, it really has been. Yeah. I mean, I just launched my new book, which is A Beautiful Radical Truth, which is a totally challenging book. Yeah. And that's been interesting. People are still navigating their way through it. It's quite a heavy duty text. It just takes a lot sort of in the psyche, in the being, in the way that it talks, the way that it speaks. I mean, it was really an experiment I did during one of our many lockdowns in New Zealand, where I woke up at 5:30 every morning and just write what I heard. And the intention was never a book, actually. It was just an experiment to see, I wonder what comes through if I'm not intending it for a client, or I'm not intending it for anything specific in particular.
Yeah.
And so this beautiful activating text came through, which actually took me through practical exercises while I was channeling it as well.
Wow.
Which is in the text too. It was a really interesting experience doing that all at once.
Totally.
Yeah, so it was amazing. So it was very sort of ignited by the launch of that, and just some other things I'm expanding into for my business right now. So it's been, it's lovely to come back. I really feel alive in America. My body and being really loves it here.
It's so beautiful. And I love what you shared too, that sometimes when we're drawn to certain places, we don't always know the why behind it, but we just have that pull. I think for anyone who's feeling that right now, it's to trust that pull. And you might not even know when you're there. You might not even know when you come home. You may never know, but likely pieces of the why will start to reveal themselves bit by bit. And there may be some portions that are just completely internal that you never really fully understand, and that's okay. But mostly, it's important to trust that call. So, how did you develop that muscle of trusting your intuition when it said, you know, do this experiment, go to this site? How did you start to get more comfortable over your lifetime in listening to that message?
It's so funny because in my journey, I always followed the calling of my heart. That wasn't any issue. And
Yeah.
after I left New York, I took off and I did the Camino to Santiago through the north of Spain,
Mm.
because I read a book by Shirley MacLaine saying that it would zap and realign me with all these energies of the ley lines and have a spiritually
Woo!
enlightening experience. And that being me turned into the bumbling opposite of all of that.
Amazing. Isn't it
I mean,
interesting?
and
Isn't
it's so funny. So, you go and intend one thing and then you often get another, which has
Yeah.
been the hilarity of the journey of my first book, The Inside Hustle. And I feel people love that comedy of errors because it's not a perfect journey. But I really started to understand how much I was in my own way because a lot of the time I was running a
Mm,
narrative, especially early on, where I thought that my gifts weren't activated, that I was, blocked or stuck in some way.
mm,
And then I came to realize that actually the mere belief system of that was what was in the way in the first place,
mm,
because what we really buy into and understand about ourselves, and especially if we're comparing to others or expecting it to be delivered in a certain way, it's not going to be like that because we're all so unique and individual.
yeah,
And we have an absolutely unique operating system, each and every one of us, that is
totally.
going to be totally different in how we understand the world of intuition, energy, spirit, consciousness. It's just going to be not cut and dried. And so when I started embracing the fact that I had had all of these experiences over my life that did show me the power of my intuition, that did show me, and I started changing my internal dialogue about it
Mm,
and really claiming all of these little things that would happen during my day, which, and then in that is kind of like claiming your own mastery because
yeah,
you are able to allow yourself to move into that space of operating like that without any of the story of not being it. And so that
mm,
really amplified things for
yeah,
me and has become a lot of the understanding of my work of how we work with consciousness, because
mm,
where we come in at this is, it really matters, especially right now on the planet, because everything is in a hugely intense state of chaos, transformation, and change. And
totally.
yet, if that's all you're seeing, then you're missing a whole big of the beautiful picture that of what is happening, really. And
Mm,
equally, in our own life, there's the different layers that we can see into, I feel. And when we are coming in it with a certain level of consciousness, things open up. And when we close that down, it closes and we feel stuck or what have you. And so I think it's really important how we come into all this, and our perception is everything. And the heart also is the mainframe. I work with heart technology, which some beings came to me in 2017 and told me it was the most relevant and effective tool on the planet. And that's really the heart as the multidimensional space as our guiding light, right? It's not the mainframe of the mind and the brain. It's just not. And the Institute of Heart Math has also proved that in scientific studies. So it's really starting to come into I think an understanding, and for us to command and operate our operating system in a way, and our mastery that is claiming what we already are, you know,
totally.
that
Mm.
opens it up tenfold in my experience.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's just striking. There's so many similarities and very unique differences to our paths, but we both were exploring the mysteries of the universe for decades. We
Mhm.
both worked in corporate settings, and we both are really focused on tapping into this new heart centered leadership. So
Yes.
tell us more about how you work with the heart. How do you work with clients in helping them to access this superpower?
Mm. So the heart technology, it's most people have sort of at this stage heard of heart coherence, which is when you use a breathing focusing technique that aligns the brain and the heart, and it melds those rhythmic patterns into a beautiful alignment of coherence, essentially, that helps harmonize our whole entire system. Beyond that, this heart space, when we start working with this in a deeper level, we start to realize, wow, we can use this for alchemy. We can use it for internal alignment. We can use it as a portal. It's a stargate, right? So when we go to
For
sacred,
sure, the Stargate of the heart.
it is the stargate. So we can use it to drop in at sacred sites and open portals of access to information that we may not have tapped into before. We can use this heart space in all of these different ways to really expand into the multidimensional space, basically, and to use our heart in a way that allows us to access more information and wisdom that we have, locked inside us, often time coded until such point as that it wants to just, open without efforting or trying or pushing or, all of those things. I mean, I think when we really drop into that trust of our heart and that space of knowing that we have everything that we need and it's all happening in the perfect alignment for us and what we came here to bring and be, then that space allows just this beautiful blossoming of the flower, so to speak. Um,
Totally.
and, it's all anchored from that heart space. And, you know, I went on a bit of a vision quest after those beings showed up. Because in
Mm,
that dream, just to put in perspective, I was, sitting here and there was these giant light beings
mm.
around me. And I was saying, but what about this ancient meditation technique? And they were like, no. I was like, but what about this healing modality? And they were like, no. And they said, it is all about the heart. It has only ever been about the heart, and it will only ever be about the heart. It is all about heart technology. Heart technology is all you need.
I am with you.
Yes.
Different sides of the world, different lived experiences,
Yeah. Yeah.
commonality right here.
Yeah.
It's
And
all
so
about the
when we start just even interacting in that space and being aware of it, and we start to allow that space to guide us and, deconstruct some of these ways that we have been taught to operate in this current level of society, I feel like we're in a process of remembering, you know, we're already these beautiful, masterful beings who've come to this planet at this time for purpose. We don't need to fix anything. We really don't need to heal anything. We don't need to try and be anything else. Or we're not like here, like, trying to balance karma from all these other lifetimes. Like, I feel like this is part of the old storyline that's slowly dismantling, along with all of the other storylines of this reality and truly what it is and what we've been taught to believe it is. And when you really connect into that heart space, it allows you to start seeing really into what is the truth of you, the truth of this reality, the truth of what is speaking to you, the truth of what is actually interacting with you above and beyond, the material things that we just, perceive as part of the storyline, the movie that we're in on this planet. um,
totally. And
yeah.
it's really a journey too of just over time quieting the mind, dropping into the heart. And as you do that, over time you start to live from the heart. And when you live from the heart, you access more consciousness. You access these higher dimensions of consciousness. So take us on that journey a little bit in terms of how you've opened yourself up to really changing your every cell and bringing in this new frequency and coherence that is elevated versus where you were maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
a week
interesting.
ago,
I mean, right? Literally.
a day ago. I mean, we were both just talking at the beginning of this podcast. This was we're recording this in between 2 eclipses, and neither of us were sleeping at all last night.
Last night. No. And it's interesting because, it's we are moving through this journey of remembering and allowing ourselves to come back into resonance with who and what we truly are. And in that, it requires, like, you don't sort of, for me, when I left corporate and stepped into this and wrote my book and put my channeled writing out there in the book, like in between the chapters, which I never thought would happen. And I was like, oh, when my editor said put it in, I was like, ah, no. But it's a beautiful book because it has an energetic way to help you transform if you're open to it. And it is working on that level. And when you start to just really trust in that and what you're getting, and trust in yourself through this experience, and listen less to that storyline of the mind that sometimes comes in and still to this day will come in. It's not like, I've been doing this work for years and I show up and, part of my living daily practice is being in the space. That part still comes in with
Same.
opinions sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that aren't of my highest, alignment or benefit. But at the same time, it's just this very fluid space where I don't get spiraled into that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And I can see it for what it is. And it may
Mm.
even bring up all the emotion, and I may get upset. I may feel spurts of anger. I got to feel the feels in the moment, but
Yeah.
knowing how to consciously
Mm.
process, is what we are able to do now. I feel when we move into the space, that means that you are able to allow all these energies and frequencies to flow through you, and allow it to open the doors, or to, there's just always other layers to this experience going on than what we may be able to tap into and perceive. Like when someone has triggered you on the street, something because of something, and it sparked something in you that suddenly you're really upset about, it may be nothing to do with that at all. And it's actually come at a time that is perfect because you were in a vulnerable space because there's something else that happened maybe
Yeah.
weeks ago that allowed that to crack you open a little wider, bring
Totally.
whatever it needed. And
Yeah.
then, because when we make it about something and we contribute or want to apply a storyline or a reason
Mm.
why or any of that stuff, you know, part of that is contributing the energetics that we're experiencing and the frequency we're able to receive or not receive from that. Whereas if we just allow things to show up and flow through, not making it about anything or
Yeah.
anyone or whatever, then
Yeah.
we just sort of create the space or whatever is happening in that moment within us on the deeper layer. And if we just surrender into the part of us that knows that that is what's going on and that is all perfect and absolute alignment for who and what we are in this moment and whatever we are and need to be, then that just allows it to really
Mm.
become and open and listen and hear what is available in that moment. And I feel like that's when the multidimensional doorways and portals open for you, when you
Yeah.
can just absolutely sink into it, because then we're out of
Mm.
resistance, we're out of trying to make it something else because we don't think that it's right, because we've been taught that unless you're smiling and happy every day, like it's not,
Yeah.
then it's not okay. And that's not the truth of this experience and this reality that we're navigating our way through at this time.
Totally.
Yeah.
I often explain it like this. Like I think of it like a radio wave. And we start out here where we're like, the highs are high, the lows are low, and the waves are really big, the ups and downs. And then as we start coming into that heart more and more, it shifts upward and the waves kind of are medium. So the highs and lows are still happening, but they're at an elevated level and we're moving through them faster. And then you go up again and the waves get smaller and smaller and smaller. So you still have those ups and downs, but they're at an elevated level now and the waves are much smaller. So you can acknowledge it, feel it, and sometimes in seconds even move through it, sometimes in a day. But um, it's all
Absolutely.
a lot quicker as you start living from your magnetic heart.
Mm.
Then you just get up and up and up, and the waves are less roller coastery, in
Yes.
my opinion.
Yes.
I've
Yes.
been on those
Agree.
waves too.
Yeah.
And,
Agree.
yeah,
Yeah. It's just you start to understand and free yourself from some of the old storylines that you may have been inhabiting of your reality and who and
yeah,
what you are in that. And there's freedom in that, and
much freedom.
we really are here for freedom in this experience. And,
Mhm.
yeah, it's like less about uh, falling for the trap of the illusion or
Yeah,
falling for it in any other way and defaulting into a way of interpreting it that we may have been taught by someone else even
yeah.
because
Or
we're really
society or the patriarchy or
exactly all of it
all of it.
because
Yeah.
we're really here to bring in the new, right?
We
And everyone is responsible for that. And
yeah.
everyone is carrying a beautiful, unique piece of that puzzle through that light
Mhm.
in their heart that is here for that purpose to show up, I believe, in the full magnificence of that light on the planet, right?
Yeah,
Connected to the true, authentic self and led by the heart and just allowing it to take you where it needs to or where it wants you to go without sort of getting in the way.
totally. Okay, so for our, like, practical listeners who are right now like, "Okay, they're all, like, airy-fairy on me, like, I am, like, living in this reality. There's shit going on in the world. I don't know what to do. That all sounds nice, but, I'm, like, doing carpool and racing to work, and
Mhm.
my reality doesn't look like that." What wisdom can you impart on that portion of our audience right now? And knowing that that was us, we've
Mhm.
been there too. And so, in a way, what would you say to your former self, another version of you from
Yeah.
before?
I mean, I would really just say a few different things, right? Like this is a living practice. It's a way to live and perceive reality. That is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about going and doing a specific activation every day that means that you're this, showing up in life like that. It's not how it works, really. It is about how your thoughts, beliefs, feelings, emotions, how all of that is running every day. And are you consciously aware of them? Or are you just unconsciously letting these patterns and cycles run in the background and drive you? Because if you're not in charge and showing up to like really change the frame of your day, to change your perception and your thoughts, like that's the energy you're in training to. So it's literally as simple as being more conscious of how you are showing up every day and not allowing some of those old narratives and storylines to dominate and drive and take hold and trigger you or whatever is happening, but allowing just the simple beauty of the life that you're currently already living to open up a little more when you are moving through it in a way that is constantly connected into the heart and that can just simply be bringing your attention there. You don't even have to do anything crazy to get there, right? Even just thinking about something makes you smile in a second will get you there. You're in the heart, right?
Totally.
It's
Gratitude, fastest way to raise your
it's
vibration.
it's not like a rocket science, but when we can choose that more often, then
Yeah.
we are
Mm.
changing our experience and then we experience more synchronicity showing
Yeah.
up and that we don't have to be off like at a sacred site for that to happen.
No, we
I
really
mean,
don't.
no,
That's a
it's
beautiful experience, and the presence in the everyday
yeah,
versus living a life on autopilot
yeah, absolutely.
is is magic. I mean, that is actually like the deepest alchemy that you can experience is just moving from autopilot to presence and
Exactly.
awareness when you're on autopilot and when you're in presence.
That's right. And that I think is the most one of the most powerful ways that we can change the way that we are living in our current reality, right? Because when we start to do that, you'll notice things shift and change. You'll notice things start to open up. You'll notice a smoother path forward. Things just happen like that. And you will see that show up in your reality, but also you are in that space, you're trusting yourself. You are, knowing and interacting with yourself on a level of consciousness that is different to the unconscious autopilot. So you're really stepping into that place of, the connecting with the true self, I like to call it,
Mm.
underneath those layers of the personality self.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
giving that more airtime, giving that more focus and attention. And what do we know about what we focus on? It expands. And so when we are just bringing our attention back to that in our daily life, we will have those other parts of us open up. And it happens very naturally and gracefully. You don't necessarily have to do anything, but all you really need to do is refocus into you, trust in all that you are, and just be conscious of the way your being is operating, and that's just natural, a natural part of us as human beings. I feel like it's part of how we operate in general, but when we bring that level of consciousness to it, it changes the game.
Yeah. And
Mm.
I think the other piece is when you're hearing that nudge or that voice inside, then there's also an element of taking aligned action. Because
Yes.
so often we can hear that voice on repeat and maybe not take the action. So there is some action steps involved in
Mhm.
order to start to shift your reality as well. And I like to think about it as um, it's even for me bigger than synchronicities because as we start to raise our consciousness, we're creating new geometric patterns in the field.
Mhm.
And for example, as you and I have created these new patterns in our lives, it gave us this opportunity for our patterns to overlap and
Right.
we got to connect. And I
Yes.
think that is so freaking cool. And now we're here
Mhm.
not knowing each other very long, having this amazing, deep conversation that's
Mm.
now beaming out to everyone else that's connected to these patterns that are forming in the field, which I think is
Mhm.
so cool. And
Yeah.
this is the new that we're stepping into.
Mm.
So tell me, what is a new pattern that has formed some divine synchronicities that have happened in your life recently?
Well, I mean, I would actually take us back to that, how I was guided to go to these ancient Pueblo sites in a way.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
interesting because then I was sort of going
Mm.
to Chaco Canyon, and I was doing a little bit of research on it, and I knew Greg Braden, who's a beautiful speaker and works in bringing
So amazing.
indigenous wisdom and like current
Mm.
wisdom and kind of marrying those up with with science is really
Yeah.
cool. But I knew that he had spent like quite a lot of time at Chaco Canyon, so I went and looked at um, his writings a little bit about it, and he was, funnily enough, doing a tour the following week that I went to Chaco Canyon, and he had this whole thing about it and all
Of
these
course.
links, of course, right? But it was so interesting because that mentioned this prophecy of the four corners,
Mm.
and the four corners was not ever what I was intending to go and do with this trip and this travel that I was doing. But what it alerted me to is this: it is this new prophecy of these different energetics and alignments in where we are moving to as humanity, basically. Like it was like, and I was just like mind blown, like, wow, okay. I have been at these four corners that has been delivering this kind of energetics, which is all what I'm about. And I'm
Yeah.
so curious to see how that unfolds through
Mm.
and ripples through my life, because things definitely come in, and there'll be
Yes.
themes in my client work and there'll be themes in my personal life that flow through for a while, and then they merge and morph into the next one that comes in that I'm working with. And so that's the level of, I guess, creative flow that is it one way of describing how I'm now operating, as opposed
Yeah.
to how I was operating, in my previous life in advertising. Although I was using my intuitive gifts in advertising for sure. Like I could
Same.
read the client and
I know.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
really powerful in that space as well. And I love the
yeah,
creativity. I loved so many things about my old life in
totally.
advertising. Um, and I know it's going to be really valuable also, like when the spaces I'm moving into now. But, you know, I really allowed that intuition, the next level driving my life instead of just coming in to support me and the mind driving the life in advertising. And so, when you follow the energy and you
Yeah,
just allow it to unfold, you know, there was parts of me that was sort of like along that journey and along this trip that I've just had being like, oh God, should I be doing something else? Like that voice came in,
yeah,
oh,
it's real.
shouldn't you are you getting anything out of this? Like, oh, you don't even know what any of this means, like for sure. Because I was, and so those parts of me, I was like, oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I would,
Mm,
do some personal practice to help me process some of those, and even having a little bit of a like getting some things out of my body about these
yeah,
things that just
yeah,
wanted to like shift and change in the moment. I mean, yeah, it's really a time where you move into a space of just being so fluid in the process and trusting it all, and then allowing it to open and deliver the gifts, whereas when we have other focuses, we're almost like the horse with the blinders on, right? Often we can't see what is there being offered up to us, or being or where we're being directed, because we're so busy being unconsciously in autopilot. So I think that that's part of how it works for me and how I've been operating, and what has happened in this most recent trip that um, I've noticed happens a lot in the way I operate now, right? It's just that kind of different level of um, allowance. I think allowing is a really big part of it, and trusting the process and trusting that we are that mastery and that guidance, and we don't need anything from outside of us necessarily to do anything. But then when information comes from somewhere to explain it, it also is
you're like,
beautiful. It all
I
works
know.
together
As
in this magical way.
as you were talking, I kept thinking about this quote that I heard many, many years ago from Dr. Valerie Ryan, who wrote The Patriarchy Stress Disorder.
Mm.
And it's really simple, but it's just thoughts are not facts.
Yeah.
And, as we have these thoughts that come in, really starting to question, like, is that true? And
Mm.
asking again, is that true? Is that
Yeah.
really true? And when we get to the root of it, so often, one, it has nothing to do with the thought, that it's an experience that we're leveling up. And we had that thought come in to give us that experience, but it's just not real.
Mm.
It's just not a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a lot of that in this reality everywhere.
totally. So
And
much.
discernment is becoming such a huge
Yes.
key.
Mm,
And I myself have been through a few initiations with really critical, more high level discernment than I've ever been through before over these last couple of years. And it's been, a real testament to my own knowing and trusting of myself in that, and being like, when at the time, at things like, oh my goodness, that level of discernment has caused, um, that choice that I made in following that discernment has caused a knock-on effect where potentially I have, something has happened in my business that meant that, now my ceremonies weren't selling out or what have you. And then questioning it in that moment and being like, but was that the right way to handle this situation? What was this the right way to handle things that came up? Or could I have done it in a different way? And then getting information that comes around a year later that So that proves to me it was on point. That's exactly what needed to happen. And all of that is superfluous. And that was all the worries of the mind. And also just the way that this reality is set up where, you know, our impact with others and our choices in relationships is very programmed to varying levels, right? And when you choose to go with discernment outside
Yeah.
of that, that's a tough
Mm.
call.
Yeah.
And we have to make these tough calls, and those
Yeah.
tough calls are hard in the moment, but then the information will come back eventually and you'll realize, whoa, that blew my mind over the last year as well, right?
Yeah.
It's not the way that we should be doing anything. It's not
No.
and it's illogical, actually, completely illogical.
Yeah.
But that is the discernment of the heart as well,
Totally.
right
This
there in
is
all
a
of that.
huge topic in my household right now because both of my kids go to school, and I have a 9 and an 11-year-old, and the narrative of what they hear at school and are taught in many ways is different than some of my experiences, lived perspectives. So I'm constantly exposing them to not take on my point of view, but to hear other perspectives and then find their own truth within all of the swirl that they're hearing. And so I was listening to this a show on Gaia TV last week when I was picking up my son. And so he listened to it with me on the car ride. And it was really so interesting because it was very different than some of what he's hearing at school right now. And it was just fun to watch him process this and to say, like, oh, like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Or like, oh, I don't agree with that, what he's saying here. And it was really beautiful to just watch him create his own truth by
Mhm.
these various inputs that were coming at him. And really key as we step forward is
So key.
sovereignty, discernment, and bringing it into unity as well.
Absolutely. Because if we can't really, trust in ourself, even though it doesn't make
Mm.
logical sense in this reality, even though it looks like we may be doing someone else a disservice or we have to make a really hard call or whatever it is,
Yeah.
the most important thing, and you actually reclaim your power in the process of
You do, and it's the greatest
actually
act of self-love.
it is that's a great way to put it, because and that is also stuff that really shifts the needle in your own experience. Because when you show up in that mastery and you're unafraid to just do it anyway, because even if it doesn't make sense and even if there's going to be fallout and all of those things, but if you just know and it may even bring up all of this other stuff that you need to rectify within yourself or let go, and which is a part of the process and part of the reason why it's happening in the first place, right? But when we can really step into that space and follow along and just do it anyway, and in deep trust of the self above all else, above absolutely everything, then that is this really powerful frequency, because I feel like that's when you tap into your true frequency of self. That is really a powerful place to be and operating out of currently in this specific time and on the planet. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, leaving corporate America was one of those catalyst moments in my life where it was really that choice point of, okay, are you going to walk the talk of who you are and live your truth, or are you going to succumb to what the external is asking you to do? And for me, it was just so powerful, maybe one of the most powerful experiences of my life up until this point, because when I followed my truth, I showed up for myself. And it really didn't matter that it didn't make sense to the outside world or
Yep.
society or all the things.
Mhm.
What it showed me, what it was like a big unlock for was, oh, but I can never abandon myself.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolute, yeah, huge. Because
Huge.
there's been so many ways we have all inadvertently abandoned ourselves over the years
Yeah.
and probably haven't been conscious of it. I mean,
Oh,
I did a lot of that,
totally.
in my 20s and 30s. Oh,
Oh,
banning myself left, right, and center,
totally.
whether
Oh my God.
whether it was for a lifestyle or whether it was choices away from a spiritual path or whether it was from still being in a corporate and feeling really out of alignment with that or whatever, like, so many examples, uh, and that we do, I feel like, are all working out of that abandonment wound in a way, the main one being abandonment of self, really, and all of it. But when we really start to just come into that space of the deepest compassion and being able to really love ourselves through absolutely all of this human experience, is so, so, so important. And I think the true definition of self-love is really being able to hold yourself in those spaces where on the days that, things feel really hard and they feel, not okay, and really being able to not go into the story and just be loving and compassionate and kind to ourselves is a real game changer in that space. And that's what we need in those moments. We don't need ourselves telling us that we did it wrong or we could have done it better or whatever. It's really just, really allowing ourselves to be deeply with ourselves in those moments of needing that loving frequency for ourselves more than anything else, and just
Mm,
showing up for ourselves in that. And sometimes it's really
yes.
hard to show up for yourself in that. There
Oh
could
my
be all
gosh.
these exterior factors
Oh,
telling you no and it's wrong and all this stuff, but
no,
you know.
it is. This has been very present for me. I've dated a few men recently, and they just haven't been full body yeses. And so I've said goodbye after the first date. And the people pleaser inside of me is like, oh my gosh. Like,
Oh, but he checks this box and this
but
box and
yeah,
this
he's
box.
like so lovely. But it's not a full body yes.
Mm,
And why would I continue for either of our sakes to pursue this if I know in my heart he's
mm.
not the one for
Yeah,
me in
yeah,
this moment? And
absolutely.
but it really brings up this people pleaser of like, oh, it's hard sometimes to just tell the truth and just be purely honest when um it would show up in corporate a lot. If somebody wasn't doing their job, one of my former colleagues was reflecting this back to me. She said, Katie always used to tell us if they're not doing their job, don't step in and do it for them because they are never going to learn from this experience. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I did used to say that. But it's a true reflection. And I notice it now with my kids and their homework. And they're like, but mom, can you help me? I'm like, I can be there. I can hold space. I can really be in it with you, but I can't do it for you because then you're not going to have that experience, whether right or wrong. I mean, homework, we could have a whole nother podcast on it. Like it's traditional schooling, but alas, this is the path I'm on with my children right now.
Yeah. Oh,
So as
interesting.
we close out today, um, first, can you tell us all the places to find you? And we'll definitely put your books in the show notes too. But
Yeah.
what's the best way to get in contact with
The
you?
best way is joannawalden.com. It's just
Yeah,
my name is my website, and that
super.
has, yeah, links to everything I'm up to. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at I am Joanna Walden. Um, and yeah, all of those places. But my books are on Amazon and Audible and all of those places too,
Mm,
and all the formats. So if you're interested
well
in
done.
them, yeah, check them out. They're pretty interesting, and they, yeah, have that ability. They're energetically kind of, encoded, and they do help people shift and change, and often meet people where they're at or give them a little nudge as well. So
Mm,
yeah, enjoy. Um,
mm. And will you close us out with some parting wisdom?
well. I actually was just sitting down before to tune in before we got on. So there's a very short channeled message I'm happy to read to everyone.
Yeah, let's do it. That
I
sounds
mean,
like a perfect way to close it out. I didn't even know.
I mean, yeah, I just expand just for everyone. I expand out, when I just drop into my heart and I expand, I just listen to what I hear. So I invite you now just to close down your eyes and bring your hands to that place in the center of your chest and just take a nice deep breath in and breathe out gently, returning to that feeling when we first dropped in at the beginning of this beautiful episode. And just allowing our mind to take a back seat as we just anchor in the heart, opening to these words that came through for all of us. As you wing your way through the interfaces of time in a reality such that nothing is in truth what it seems, from this knowing and perspective, you set yourself free. And as you unchain yourself from the constructs and bounds of the illusion within, you will experience these without. For any obstruction to your innate freedom has been in actual fact placed there by you for the purpose of transcending that which is not real. Coming into resonance with who and what you truly are is how you navigate this experience with ease and grace. For the knowing of self is all-powerful, beyond all else. And in this chasm of the depths of you, orientation to your true north is not only possible, but a given and unshakable foundation from which to experience this reality in the way in which it was intended, uninterrupted by all that is not in resonance with the eternal truth of you that trumps all. Take a breath and just allow that frequency to land within you. Even if you didn't understand some of the words, I invite you to just breathe it into all of your being, sending it into the places within you that need it most.
Wow. Wow. That's the perfect place to close on out, and so beautiful. It really tied up everything we talked about.
It really did. I was kind of reading it thinking, wow.
A beautiful bow. And I am so grateful. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll have to have you back again.
Thank you for having me. It's been so great. I'm so looking forward to where we go from here.
Me too.
Yeah.
Have a beautiful rest of your day.
You too.
I'm grateful for your presence on this remarkable and captivating journey today. Together, we've delved into the realms of limitless possibilities and unlocked the secrets of our true selves. A mystical life is not a mere coincidence. It's a thrilling adventure that you actively shape with intention and passion. Remember, when you follow your light, you not only illuminate your own path, but you also radiate light to the world around you. The world eagerly awaits the magic you have to offer. Follow your light and let it guide you to incredible heights.